Cool. Over to you, Ruby.
Thanks, John. Good evening, everybody. I'm Ruby Boris. I play for Glen Eira FC Soccer Club in under-12s. This wonderful event is part of our home football program. I'm very pleased to welcome a very special guest who has joined us today to talk about his outstanding career, Duncan Armstrong. Duncan is an elite Australian swimmer, Olympic and Commonwealth gold and silver medalist, and former world record holder. Crowned Young Australian of the Year and won an Order of Australia medal. He has also been inducted in the Swimming Hall of Fame. We are absolutely delighted to have you here. Over to you, Duncan.
Well, thank you very much, Ruby. Great to see you all, and thank you very much for getting together and coming along to listen to what I have to say. Thank you to John and Georgia and Stuart for allowing me to speak to all your team today. I know 2020 has been very, very challenging for everybody. You know, every time you turn around, everyone wants to talk about COVID, whether we have to stay inside, whether we're about to run around, if we're allowed to go for a walk for an hour, do we have to wear a mask? So you're going to remember 2020 for a lot of different reasons. And one of the things you're going to remember 2020 for is not being able to get out and play soccer, the game that you absolutely love. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my career and a little bit about what I used to do when I used to get stopped with sickness or injury, okay? And one of the things I used to ask myself all the time back in the day when I was competing for Australia and wearing the green and gold and going to the Olympic Games is that whenever I got injured or wherever I got sick and I couldn't take part in the training sessions and I couldn't take part in the work that I wanted to do, that I used to love to do as a swimmer, I'd always ask myself a very simple question. Well, what can I do today? If I can't do all of the things I love to do, what can I do today? And that would make me sort of get into a creative mindset, into doing something that would make a difference to my dreams of swimming for Australia. So it might have been, I might have had to go for a run, or I might have had to go to the gym, or I might have got on a stationary bike, or I might have done some kicking, or I might have done some more stretching, or I might have done some more skills work that didn't involve maybe my injured shoulder and things like that. So this is the thing that I want to talk about today. What can you do about improving your soccer while in the COVID conditions? What's some of the things that you could possibly do? Because you're not going to show up to training because there's going to be no training. You're not going to show up to the weekends because there's not going to be not any games. But what can you do today in your backyard to make sure that your soccer keeps on improving? Is it getting together with your coach? Is it getting together on the telephone to Georgia or John or Stuart to be able to talk about, you know, how we're going to improve our team? What tactics can we use? Are you going to share some YouTube clip of some elite team that you follow? Maybe it's an EPL team. Maybe it's Chelsea. Maybe it's Man U. Maybe it's Man City. Are you going to share some skills that you saw in a game that really impressed you, that will inspire other people? Because getting together, no matter how you do it, whether it be online or whether it be in person or at training, is sometimes the best part of sport. Now, I grew up in a very small town in Queensland, in central Queensland, called Rockhampton. Has anyone heard of Rockhampton? Put your hand up. Yeah? So Rockhampton is about the size of Shepparton in Victoria. Anyone been to Shepparton? So Rocky is about that big, and it had 2 swimming pools. And every weekend I was at the swimming pool. Every Wednesday night I was at the Rocky Amateurs. And what I loved about swimming was being around my friends and being around competitions. And it's almost like the same feeling you feel in the dressing sheds at soccer. You know what I mean? When you get ready to go and you put your boots on, you pull your socks up and you put your shin guards in, and you put your uniform on and you turn around, you look around and there's about 15 other people wearing the same uniform as you. It's a good feeling, right?
He hasn't turned the cake.
Who's that, Charlie?
Who are on the call?
Yeah, you're on the call. So Charlie was on the call. Thanks very much for the chime in, Charlie. That was good. So, and that's the joy of competition. Now, that doesn't change that feeling of the dressing sheds and when you run out for the team and you've got your uniform on, that doesn't change when you start making your representative teams. The uniform changes, but that feeling doesn't change. And if you can keep the fun in it and enjoy being in the team, when you make the Victorian team, if you make the Victorian team, the feeling will still be there where you wear the dark blue, was it navy blue for Victoria? And then if you continue on and you set your sights high and you want to do the work, then that Victorian team could possibly turn into the green and gold of the Australian team, okay? And that's when it gets really, really, really exciting, because the feeling that you have in the club at the moment is the feeling that you'll have for Australia. It'll be just magnified a lot more. And when you get your uniform for Australia, on the front of it, right where your heart is going to be the Australian emblem, okay, the coat of arms. And it's got the wattle, it's got the kangaroo, it's got the emu, and it's got the crest of Australia. And underneath it's got the word Australia. And when I was your age, I dreamed about getting one of these green and gold tracksuits and swimming for Australia at the Olympic Games. And when I started training, I was around about 10 years old. And I was in a very, very small squad. We didn't do a lot of training, but we had a huge amount of fun. And that fun inspired me to keep on going with my swimming. And then when I was about 14 years of age, I moved from Rockhampton to Brisbane. It's about 800 kilometres. It's about the same distance from Melbourne to Adelaide. So we moved from Brisbane to Rockhampton to Brisbane, and so I could train with this crazy coach named Laurie Lawrence. And Laurie Lawrence was the craziest, toughest, baddest, angriest coach in all of Australian swimming. But every 4 years, Laurie would put 10 people on the Olympic team. Every 4 years, 10 Laurie Lawrence swimmers would wear the green and gold. And that was my dream. My dream was to go to the Olympics and wear the green and gold and swim in the 200 metres freestyle. So I joined Laurie's squad when I was 14 years of age, and I did thousands and thousands and thousands of laps, more laps than you can walk. It was amazing. And in 6 years with training with Laurie, I built up my skills, toughness, concentration, focus, and mindset. 6 years it took me, and I made my first Australian swimming team to go to the Olympic Games at the age of 20. And because I'd done enough laps and because I'd been around enough people and I'd learnt my lessons and I'd learned how to be a really good swimmer, I built up my toughness. When I got to the Olympic Games at the age of 20, on the first day of competition, I won a gold medal in the 200 metres freestyle. You'll find on YouTube. 200 metres freestyle, day one of the 1988 Olympic Games. 32 years ago this week. Can you believe that? 32 years ago. But anyway, so went to the Games and lived my dreams. I was able to touch the wall first in front of the rest of the people who showed up. We broke a world record in the 200 metres freestyle and won the gold medal, and it was the 100th gold medal Australia had won at the Olympic Games, okay, since the Games started in 1896. And it all started because I had a dream when I was your age, growing up in a country town, because I'd seen two Olympians come to the pool and they were wearing their green and gold tracksuits. And I looked at those green and gold tracksuits and I thought, wow, imagine what it's like to go to the Olympic Games and get one of them. And that's what lit the fire in me to start the journey all those years ago to finally get to the Olympic Games, okay? And then 4 years later after that, I got to my second Olympic Games at the 1992 Barcelona Games. So I came first in 1988. I got one a gold and a silver. And 4 years later, I came last. Made the Australian team, went to the Olympic Games, and swam so poorly that I came zero, last. And so I'm very, very lucky that in my swimming career, I've had the fairy tale in 1988 and everything went right. And 4 years later, went to another Olympic Games, very proud of that, wearing the green and gold again, and did everything wrong and came last. So I've had it all. I've had the agony and the ecstasy and the fairy tale. So that's a little bit about my story. That took me about 15 minutes to tell it. And so we've got plenty of time left for questions. Who's got a question they want to ask me? Eva put her hand up first. Harley put his hand up second. So,
Okay. You want to go to Eva?
Yeah. Why did your coach call you the animal?
okay. So in our training squad, we had about 60 people every morning at 5 o'clock getting in the water and every afternoon at 3:30. And we would do around about 400 laps of a 50-metre pool every single day, right? Except Sunday. And so when you're leading your lane, you get the opportunity to go on the time base. So say you've got 200 laps to do, you've got to do it on a 45-second base. Sometimes you just wouldn't take any rest and you would go animal, would go crazy. You'd go really hard at the squatting to see if you could burn everybody else off. So Laurie used to yell at us going, look at him, guy, he's gone, get after him, he's gone animal. And sometimes you'd spend a whole season going so crazy in training that you would get the nickname the animal. And the year of the Olympics in 1988, for a whole year I'd basically gone animal, just attacked the training, and so that became my nickname. And then when Laurie was getting really excited about me winning the gold on the pool deck, he was yelling out of the top of his lungs, where's the animal, where's the animal, where's the animal? And so for 32 years, people have asked me, why did he call you the animal? And now you know. So that's a really good question, Eva. How are you? Great question. Thank you for asking it. Harley.
Imagine you did a lot of after school swim practice. And
Yep.
was there ever a time that you kind of didn't want to go to the practice because you wanted to hang out with your friends or your friends were going to the park and you felt kind of left out that you had to go to your training?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Harley. And everybody on the call, if you go on with your sport, you're always going to run into some tough decisions, okay? Whether to go to training or whether to go to a party or catch up with friends or even do your homework, okay? You're going to come up with tough questions. Now, you're going to have to work out for yourself whether what you want to do more of and less of. But you're always going to want to do the other thing, okay? Do you understand what I mean? Like many times my friends were going off to do some fun thing. But I had my sights set on the Australian team. So I knew that I had to make tough decisions to go to training and do something less fun than my friends were doing, okay, if I was going to do something extraordinary. Now have a think about this, guys. How many people are in your soccer team when you run out to play the game? How many people actually are in your side? 10? Or is it 11? 8? 9? 10? Okay, so we've got a few different answers, right? So how many? 9, 10. Okay. So when you put that uniform on and you get picked and selected to run out on the field, it's a pretty special feeling, isn't it? And I think a lot of people would like to be in your team, but you can only pick 10 people or 11 people or 9 people to run out there, right? So it's an exclusive bunch. So when I looked at the Olympic Games, only 36 Australians in the swim team are picked to go to the Olympics every 4 years. Only 36, that's 18 men and 18 women. And so if I was going to be one of those 18 women and get selected in front of everybody else who has a go, then I've got to go and do the training at the pool. Even though I might want to go to a party or hang out with my friends or do something fun, if I'm going to be one of those 18 people, then I've got to go and do the hard stuff. And I've got to make that hard decision to stick to what I'm doing. And if you want to make the team every single week in the club, you've got to go to training, right? You've got to improve yourself. You've got to get better. You've got to test yourself. You've got to understand that only 9, 10 or 11 people are going to play this weekend in the uniform. And if you want to be one of them, then you have to make the tough decisions to go to training, focus on how to improve, listen to your coaches, eat well, go to sleep early, not eat rubbish food, so you can go out there and get one of those jerseys and be selected. Because the people who do those things best deserve to be selected. And if you want to be one of those people deserving to be selected to play on the weekend, then you have to do the tough stuff. You have to do the training. You have to show up for training and do the tough stuff as well. So if you want to be in the team, you've got to make those tough decisions sometimes after school to do the training rather than going have fun. You're welcome. Thanks, Harley.
Clancy, do you have a question?
Clancy, and I was just wondering, do you have a pre-game ritual?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
What would it include?
Okay. So every time I went for competition, like the big time competitions, I always had a new pair of goggles and a new pair of togs. Okay. And I always dried myself with my towel the same way every time. Okay. So I was a little bit superstitious. And I'd always have 2 new pairs of goggles in my bag ready to go just in case these new goggles snapped. And I always had 2 new pairs of togs in my bag just in case the new togs came out of the pack and they were the wrong size. You don't need that. You don't want wrong size togs. So I always had this ritual that really helped me get into the mood. Okay. And you should have a ritual too. You should maybe put the left-hand sock on and the right-hand, left-hand sock first and the next sock, but then you should swap boots. You need to work it out for yourself. I'm just having a bit of a go at you. But seriously, you should work into a routine that you pack your bags for the game in the same way so you don't forget anything, okay? Because sometimes when you're not ready and you don't have your right rituals, sometimes you forget stuff. Now, I took my 8-year-old son, I took my kids to school the other day, and I got all the way to school before my 8-year-old said, I've forgotten my shoes. Has anyone done that? Have anyone forgotten their footy boots? Soccer boots? What about your shin guards? What about your socks? Hopefully you've never forgotten your pants. Everyone's got their shorts on? That's sort of essential, isn't it? Yeah, sort of essential. But have a think about that. I read about a rugby league player who used to go to the game to play rugby league, and because they would travel away to different fields and different cities, and you never knew what kind of grass they grew on their fields or whether it's been dewy or wet, or he would take 6 pairs of different boots with different cleats in them, and he would get out there and take all 6 out for warm-up, and he'd wear about 3 or 4 that he thought he should, and during warm-up he'd test about 3 or 4 sets of boots before deciding on which one of the 6 ones he'd wear. Now, I don't think you should go and get 6 pairs of boots. I'm just saying that you need to come up with a ritual that suits you about your boots, socks, shin guards, mouth guard, bag, jersey, short, that you should map it all out and work out what really works for you, because the more you do that, the more consistent you'll play and the less your parents are going to yell at you for forgetting something. So that's important too.
Yes, do you want to go?
Did you ever want to stop doing swimming or start a new career?
Oh yeah, I used to get sick of swimming every single season, and so there'd be 2 or 3 weeks in every single season that it all just became too hard. It all just became so boring. Like swimming laps and laps and laps is not like playing soccer. Like it is boring because you can't talk to anybody. You're swimming up and down. It's just you. So I used to get really, really sick of it. But what I found out is that I really liked watching movies from a very, very early age, right? And I knew that when I got sick of it, if I watched a really good movie, it used to be really restore what I thought about swimming. Now, it might not be movies for you. It might be going for a walk. It might be seeing your friends. It might be doing something else in it. It's like we've all got to find out something that we really enjoy doing that restores our spirit and reignites why we want to play soccer or why we want to swim or why we want to get our vision up to maybe make a rep team. And it helps us go back to training and find the reason that we love it, right? So it restores the fun. So when my coach was at me all the time and I couldn't take it anymore, I'd go to a movie And I'd come out of the movie and I felt like I'd slept for like 8 hours and I felt really energized again. So when I went back to the pool, it just made sense again. Okay. Now, some people love to listen to music. Some people like playing video games. But whatever it is, find out something you truly love to do just because you love to do it. Doesn't have to go anywhere. Doesn't have to do anything. Doesn't have to improve your, it doesn't have to make you smarter. But it just has to be something you truly love to do, Ines. And once you find that, you'll go back to it all the time. Like even now, my wife, when I'm getting really crabby, will say, will you go to a movie and watch a movie, please? You're a real pain. And I'll go, yeah, I am actually. And I'll go and I'll come back and I feel different. And that's the whole point. But I used to get sick of swimming every year and then get over it. Ruby's distracted.
Mara, do you have a question?
Hi, Duncan. I'm Mara. I'm Harley's mum. She already asked you a question. Now, I was an ex-swimmer myself. I didn't get as far as you did. I just wanted to ask, you did say before that it is very boring in the swimming pool. I remember swimming and looking at the black line, singing songs, thinking what my mum and dad are making me for dinner. What did you used to think when you were under the water?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about pretty much the same thing, Mara. We could have been in the same squad, I think. I used to think about food endlessly. So I used to do the singing. I used to sing songs, but I used to think about movies a lot. Like I said to Ines, I've been passionate about movies all my life. And so I'd be thinking about movies and movie lines. And then I got into reading. And so I started reading like all these different books and stuff like that. And it was back in the olden days, so we didn't have any internet or mobile phones. And so reading books and going to the movies and watching videos was like my big thing. And so I'd swim up and down just imagining movies and thinking about books and stuff. And I really loved being in the squad because all my friends were in the squad. And so being surrounded by my friends, even though swimming was tough and boring and, watching the black line, like you said, it was really the only place I wanted to be because I really liked the squad that I was in. All my mates were in the squad. So seeing my mates every single day, 6 days a week was really where I really wanted to be. And I was surrounded by so many better swimmers than me. And I really wanted to be competitive and I really wanted to be like them. I really admired a lot of them. So being around my friends, being in a sports team like the Laurie Lawrence swim team, really inspired me to be better at swimming and then thinking about movies and books and things like that. So I'd look across the lane and I'd see all these guys that are faster than me, bigger than me, stronger than me. And I'd just look at them and go, one day I'm going to be just like them. And I'd just compete and compete and compete. And then I'd listen really, really well. And so I really listened intensely to what they were saying about going to the Commonwealth Games or going to the Australian Championships or going to the Queensland Championships and especially going to the Olympics. So I used to be a real sponge for information with the older guys who are much better than me. And that's what I used to think about. So same as you. Hasn't changed much swimming, that's for sure.
It's good to know. Good to know.
Thanks, Mara.
Sophie, do you have a question?
Yeah. Why did you choose swimming out of all the sports?
Well, most swimmers choose swimming because they're really lousy at ball sports. If I could have played soccer, I think I would have played soccer, but I couldn't play soccer. I was hopeless. And so most of the people that end up in the water are usually really bad at running, have no ground speed, and they're hopeless at anything to do with the ball. Tennis balls, footballs, soccer balls, cricket balls, you name it. Swimmers are hopeless at it. So we end up in the pool. And I think growing up in Rockhampton, Rockhampton's in the tropics, and so it's stinking hot like all the time. It can get up to like 48 degrees in Rockhampton in the summertime. So the only place, the smart place to be in the summertime in Rockhampton is in the pool, whether your backyard pool or down at the South Rocky pool. And so all our friends would be down at the pool all the time, especially in the summertime. And so because you're in the water all the time, swimming's a good option. And then when I was about your age, Sophie, I started winning races, and that felt really, really good. You know the feeling you get when you win a soccer game and you might win 4-0? How good is that? Yeah. And that's what it feels like when you win a swimming race. You feel like you're on top of the world. You feel like you've done something really magnificent. And I started winning when I was about your age. So I just wanted to do it more and more and more. So we'd go to competitions on the weekend, and then we started travelling to other central Queensland towns that might be an hour or an hour and a half away or 2 hours away. And we would race all weekend. And I sometimes would win like 10 races on a weekend. It was awesome. And so that got me into it. And I just wanted to keep on swimming because ball sports have never been an option.
Eva,
When you were swimming, did you ever used to just forget what you were doing and daydream?
I'll tell you a little secret, Eva. Don't tell anyone. But I used to get so tired because we start in the water at 5 a.m. That meant I had to get out of bed at 8 minutes past 4 every morning, right? My alarm would go off at 8 minutes past 4 because that was the last minute I could sleep in and still get to the pool by 5, right? That's how far from the pool we'd live. And so I'd get up at 8 minutes past 4. I'd go downstairs. I'd eat 14 Wheat Bix. I'd get in the car. My dad would take me to the pool and we'd start in the pool at 5, right? And sometimes I'd be so tired on a Friday morning that I'd fall asleep while I was swimming along and I'd run into the wall. I kid you not, at the end of the pool. Sometimes I'd be swimming along and I'd be just like drifting off to sleep and bang, I'd run straight into the wall because I wasn't watching. That's a true story. And my coach, Laurie, would look at me and go, "Did you just fall asleep?" And I'm like, "No." And he goes, "You're an idiot, Armstrong. Do you know that? You're an idiot." And clearly I wasn't. But yeah, I used to fall asleep. I used to get so tired. But anyway, what was your question? Was that your question?
I asked if you daydreamed while you
Oh, yeah. Well, I used to sleep and dream. But yeah, I used to do a lot of daydreaming. And, you know, people call it daydreaming, but I call it visualization because when you're standing around thinking and creatively putting things together in your mind, people call it daydreaming. And that's a beautiful thing of calling it because you have to dream big if you're going to win big. Like as a team, you've got to get together and talk about what it'll feel like when you win this game next week, or when you win the premiership, or win the flag, or win the season, because that's where the real work gets done in your mind. So when the opportunity comes to kick that goal or to save that goal or to defend it, that's where it comes from. It comes out of your daydreaming. It comes out of your visualization. And when you're in a team, you get the whole team to do it and it becomes really powerful. So my coach, Laurie, and I would sit down and we'd set these big dreams. You know, we're going to go to the Olympic Games, we're going to win. We're going to go to the Commonwealth Games and we're going to win. We're going to make the Australian team. These are big dreams, Eva. And that's where daydreaming comes into it. And that's where daydreaming becomes really, really powerful. Because if you can lock it in here and in your heart, you can actually make it come true. Okay, and
did
that's
you,
why
did you daydream at the same time as swimming?
all the time. I used to swim along and I could daydream that I could hear the crowd at the Olympics. And I hadn't been to the Olympics yet. I used to swim along and just daydream about what it would feel like to stand on the Olympic podium. I used to swim along and I'd see someone, you know, who it might be, you know, I was 14 years of age. It might be someone, a girl who might have been 20, okay, much better swimming than me. And I'd look across the lane and I'd daydream that that's my competition and I'm at the Olympics and I've got to beat her to the wall. And she doesn't know she's in a race, but in my mind, I could hear the crowd. I could see the Olympic rings on all the bunting around the pool, and I was racing for the Olympics. I'd run in and I'd touch the wall and I'd look up and see if I beat her. Yeah, she didn't know she was in a race, but I thought she was in a race. So I used to daydream about this all the time. So if you're daydreaming about kicking the winning goal or making that winning save or being on that team with that green and gold uniform on like the Matildas, that's exactly where you've got to be, Eva. You've got to be in there thinking about it all the time so it comes true when you're ready.
Okay,
Great question.
Amelia.
I was just wondering, pre-race, how did you get yourself hyped up?
Some races you got to get hyped up a lot because, like, you might be racing at a little meet in the country with about 10 people watching, and you might be tired from training, and that's when racing becomes really difficult because you've got to get into a state that you're ready to race. You've got to build yourself up and get ready to go. And so those times are really, really difficult. So you go through a routine. And so for swimming, and I think it's a little bit like this for soccer, sometimes you put liniment on your skin or oil on your skin, whether you've got an injury or whatever. You might not. Say you've got a sore knee and you rub some cream on it. That cream's got a smell in it. So for me, what I used to do is not put any cream on. I just smell it, okay? And it's called liniment or goanna oil or stuff like that. We're talking the olden days now. And that used to be enough to get my state and arousal level, bang, it used to get me up to when I'm really ready to race. But when you go to the national championships or something like that, you've been getting ready for the nationals for like a year. So by the time you get to the nationals, you're really at that high state, and you have to bring yourself down a little bit, because if you get too excited, then you race out there the first half of your race, you burn too much petrol, and you can't get back. So what you try to do at the nationals, because it's so exciting and there's so much pressure, and this is your moment, you've been waiting a year, you've actually got to try to calm down. So you're trying to get off of a high state and bring it to a lower state. So by the time you get in the water, you're at the right level to be able to attack. So you don't want to be too crazy. And then when you get to the Olympic Games, because it's 4 years between swims, it's just at a crazy level of pressure that you've got to do all these breathing exercises. You've got to do yoga, breathing. You've got to stay calm. You've got to stay away from people who are too excited. You've got to stay with calm people. You've got to identify who's really chilled, and you've got to identify that who's like out of their mind, and stay away from them and stay next to the chilled crowd. Because if you get too hyped the day before your race, it'll drain your energy and you won't be ready to go and you'll get beat. You know what I mean? So monitoring where you are in your excitement level is really, really key to a great performance. Now, in soccer, when you get in the dressing sheds and you get your final rev up talk from your coach or your parents, that's the time to get your excitement going to a level. You got your uniform on, you're ready to go, you're about to run out there. That's when you've got to be at your most excited. You've got to run into position, you've got to remember everything you've done at training, and you've got to be totally focused. You can't be sort of distracted by the people on that side of the field, or distracted by something happening here, or you can't be distracted. You've got to be on the field, in your uniform, ready to do the team tactics that you've learnt to support your team with your best individual performance as part of the team. Okay? Did that answer your question, Amelia? Thanks.
I've got a question.
Yes.
So my question is, if you had your time again, what swimming advice would you give to your younger self?
That's a good question, Ruby. I've never been asked that question before. What would I say to myself? I think I'd say to myself, calm down. I think I'd say to myself, if you want a long career, you have to be a little bit more focused about staying calm. I used to run around a lot trying to win every single race I went in, and I burnt so much energy and just used to stress so much about being as good as I possibly can be. I think if I looked at my young self, I'd say, you're going to be in this game for a long time. You're not enjoying it enough for everything it offers. Calm down, be confident, and don't stress so much. So I'm basically, I think what I'd say to myself is, you're not having enough fun, go have more fun. That's what I think I'd say. And I think I would have swum a lot better if I was a little bit calmer and I was searching for a little bit more fun. So my advice to everybody on the call is, as long as you're having fun playing soccer, you're going to be playing good soccer. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, Ruby. That was a really good question. I'm going to go away and think about that and probably daydream a bit about it.
Adele, you have a question?
Yep. So, did you ever dream of becoming a swimmer, or did you have other career choices when you were younger, but then found out you were really good at swimming?
Yeah, I always thought I was a good dancer. No one else did, but I did. I think that was a dream of mine to be a really good dancer. So thank goodness I was a good swimmer. But there were times that I really wanted to do a couple of things. Like I wanted to go to university, but swimming in those days was really all consuming. So I couldn't go to university and study what I wanted to study. I had to make that hard choice or tough choice to finish my swimming career first. But I've had a lot of dreams in my life, Adele, and I've been able to live most of them. So I haven't got too many regrets. Like when I was a young person, I wanted to really play rugby league, and I thought I was a really good rugby league player, but I really wasn't. And so swimming came along and sort of took that dream and changed it into a swimming dream, which I'm very grateful for. And then when I was swimming up and down for many years, I dreamed about being on television. So I really wanted to be a television sports commentator. And when I got out of the pool, I was able to start in radio. Then I went into television. I was a sports commentator, and I went to, I think, 4 Olympic Games as an Olympic swimming commentator, and I really loved that. I really loved it. And then I dreamed about having a family, so I've got 5 kids, so I've been able to do that. And what do I dream about now? I just dream about having capable kids, which is a big dream, and sometimes they don't play the game. But anyway, we're all trying together. So yeah, I've been very fortunate, Del, to sort of like dream and daydream, get my vision up, and then be brave enough and courageous enough to chase after it. Not to hear no for an answer, but if I want to do something, that I just keep on chasing it. Because you'll find a lot of people, even our loved ones, sort of say, "Oh, what do you want to do that for?" When you tell them your dreams, and they go, "But it's my dream, and it's your dream. It's nobody else's dream." And so it's up to you to be courageous enough to protect your dream and chase it, no matter if things and challenges come up, no matter if people tell you can't do it. That's their opinion. It's got nothing to do with you, and it's none of your business, really. So you just get on with chasing your dreams, Adele. That's the most important advice I can ever give you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Great question.
Do you have a question?
How did you balance schoolwork with like all the swimming you did?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really ripper. I didn't balance it very well. So in the old days, you either did your schoolwork or you did your sport. And the schools weren't really set up to support elite sportsmen at school just yet. It sort of came about 10 or 15 years later after I'd finished school. So when you're talking about swimmers like Katie Campbell and Liesl Jones and Susie O'Neill, school was really on board for those champions, so they got a great education as well as they became elite sports people, okay? But back when I was doing it a little bit before that, you had to choose one or the other, okay? So my school really suffered because I was doing hundreds and hundreds of laps a week. I still got a high school certificate, but it wasn't a very good one. So when I was finishing swimming, I was thinking about going back and doing my year 12 again, okay, at the age of 24. But then I got a job in my dream job in radio, leading to television. So actually now I've never gone back to school and have to do it again. But I haven't got a great education. So what I've tried to do in life is learn from everybody around me and the experiences that I have. And so you could say I've been to the University of Life or the University of Hard Knocks or the University of Experience. How about that? And I've been able to utilize all of that and not worry about my schoolwork. But at the time, it was a real challenge about how I was handling my schoolwork, and how far I was going to go in my swimming. But because I had such big dreams for my swimming, I was able to get through that challenge and march on. But that's a great question, Kylie. And it's something that everybody on this call is going to have to judge where their soccer takes them or where their sport takes them, and how you integrate both of that with your schoolwork, because schoolwork is super important for your future.
I don't think there are any more questions. So now I'd like this opportunity to thank Duncan on behalf of Glen Eira FC.
Hey, Ruby, sorry, hang on. I might give some more time. There might be a few others if it's okay, just to give a bit of time if others who you may not see or may have been waiting. So we might just give a bit of a pause if there's other questions. I want to make the most of Duncan's wisdom, and it's been fantastic. So yeah, well, let's just give a few minutes. Ines has got a question.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll just give him a bit more time. Thanks.
Did it like people tell you like you weren't good enough to like be able to accomplish your dream?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because people don't know who you are inside. Okay. Your mum and dad love you. Okay. They know who you are. But apart from your immediate family, your mum and dad, and your very, very close uncles and aunties or grandparents and stuff, people don't know who you are and what strength you've got in us. Okay. And I used to love this saying. When people tell you you can't do something, they usually get interrupted by people going ahead and doing it. Okay. Do you understand what that means? That means that if I'm telling you you can't do it, you're going to interrupt me by going and doing it. Okay. You've got so much strength and power and potential in you, Ines, that no matter what you put your mind to, if you focus hard enough and work hard enough, that effort, okay, will equal results. And those results could be higher than anybody in your life could ever think of. Okay. So you never want to limit yourself with anybody's opinion of you. Okay. You've really got to just set a plan, work out how to get there, and start getting into it. Okay. Never hold back, and never let anybody tell you what you can and can't do. Okay. Because you've only got to go on the internet and type in something like people doing extraordinary things, and you'll see what people are up to. And it's extraordinary. Now, I'm not saying you're supposed to go and do what they're doing. Okay. But I'm just saying that we've got such a spirit of adventure inside of us that if you dream big enough and work hard enough, there's no reason, Ennis, that you can't do anything you want to do. So be very, very careful with people who say, you can't do that. Because I used to look at them and go, oh, yeah, watch this. Yeah. And you don't have to say it out loud, and you don't have to take them on. You don't have to argue with them or defend yourself. It's not about that. But if they're telling you that you can't do something, they're really just telling you what they can't do, not what you can't do. Okay, so it's a reflection bit on them, not you. So you just take it and you say, well, thanks very much for that. I'll let you know when I've done it. You can have some fun with it. Okay, they're not being mean. They're just more talking about their own spirit and how they want to limit themselves. And they're a little bit jealous of what you might be able to do. So just don't worry about it. Just get on with what you're doing, Ines.
Nancy, do you have a question?
So, when you finished your swim meet, what was your favorite thing to eat after? Straight after?
Pizza.
What was your favorite meal?
Oh, look. I tell you, when you get ready for swim meets and stuff like that, sometimes you can't eat pizza for a long, long time. And man, I used to have a meat lovers with barbecue sauce on deep pan, right? And then, lo and behold, years later, they come out with a cheese crust. And I didn't think life could get better until the cheese crust arrived. And then I thought, heaven can't be better than this. I know it will be, but man. So I would finish the swim meet and we'd do the medal ceremony and everything like that. I'd do the radio and television interviews and stuff like that. And then I'd go straight away and have a Pizza Hut meat lovers with extra cheese and mushroom, barbecue sauce, deep pan. And I used to think I was the king of the world. The king of the world. Who else liked meat lovers pizza? Put your hand up. Yeah, nice. Anyone have cheese crust? Oh, it's awaiting for you when you become an adult. How about that?
Does anybody have any other questions to ask? Charlie?
If you were back then, now competing at this a high level, do you think you could play 2 sports at once?
That's a really good question, Charlie. In history, there's been many athletes, men and women, who have played 2 or 3 sports. Like when you look at the Olympics and you look at someone like Nova Peris. Nova Peris Kneebone was an Indigenous athlete who sprinted for Australia and ran the 200, 100 and the 400 on the track. And then she went over to the hockey team and she became a Hockey Roos gold medalist. So she did track and field and hockey, and she was brilliant at both of them, but she wasn't doing it at the same time. So elite sport, right at that Australian level, is really difficult to do at the same time. But you'll find a lot of fantastic athletes who might do a season of this and then a year later do a season of that because they're so good at both. So you can do it. And if you want to do it, Charlie, you should rip into it, because most of these athletes, before they get in the Australian team, do both at the same time. But the Australian team, when you get into it, is so intense and so focused, and their competition schedule is so busy that sometimes when you're playing 2 sports, you can't get the schedules to meet up. So when you're supposed to be playing this game, this one will be on. And when you've got to play this one will be on. So you can't kind of do it, even though there's lots of female athletes who have been able to do both. Like, I think we've had hockey players and cricketers. I think we've had athletes and hockey players. I think we've had netballers and cricketers and things like that. So you do find it, and it is pretty common. But by the time you get in the Australian team, it's so complicated to play both that they basically do a year of one and then a year of another, then a year of one, a year of another. But there are out there. They do it. Good question.
Eva, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, please. You said that you used to have a meat lovers thing after the swim stuff. What did you eat before? If you eat?
Yeah, we used to eat some complex carbohydrates, so a lot of baked potatoes, okay, without the butter and without the bacon and without the sour cream and all that kind of thing. So I used to really like them cold, so we'd make all these baked potatoes and put them in the fridge, and then I'd put a little bit of salt on them. And because they had that dense starch and dense carbohydrate, it used to be really good in my stomach, and it used to give me a lot of energy for the racing. And we'd eat a lot of pasta. So the night before, we'd eat a spaghetti bolognese meal and things like that. But sports science now thinks that that's not such a great feed to have, that you're better off having a steak and salad and other things like that. So you sort of go anyway, but not at your age. You don't have to worry about it yet, Eva. You just eat what you want, because your body is so attuned to be able to go through it in time for your soccer in the morning. But you're wanting to eat clean. Does everyone understand what eating clean is about? So you're not trying to get too many processed foods. So not too many cookies and not too much bread and not too much that. You're trying to eat clean. So veggies, salad, pasta, chicken, just clean without too many sauces, because then your body's able to process it, get the energy out of it, and make you a really, really good soccer player for the entire game and things like that. So we would eat those sort of things, and then I'd eat just a light meal before, because you don't want too much sitting in your tum-tum when you're about to race or play soccer and things like that. So I'd eat fairly little, but a lot of cereal. We'd eat a lot of cereal. Cereal's good, but not too much milk, because the milk sort of sits in your tummy and makes you feel a bit blah. So no yogurt, none of that stuff that's going to sit in your tum-tum too much. Fruit's good. So if you want something sweet to eat, fruit's the best thing, not sugar, not honey. So fruit's good. So have an apple before you play sport, or a banana or something like that. That's always good for you. So what else? That's about it. And if you win, then you can eat all the pizza you want.
Okay. At what age would you recommend to start using that diet sort of?
You should be eating as clean as you possibly can be now. Cereal's fine now. Yeah, but just normal things. Okay, you don't need to stress about your diet too much at all at your age either. So just eat normal things that aren't from the chip aisle and the chocolate aisle and and all that sort of like processed food aisle. You know, all the yummy stuff that we love to eat, you can't kind of eat it too much coming up to a soccer game, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good question.
Do you have a question?
After every weight race you swam,
Hmm.
Did you have to do cool down laps? And did you
Yeah.
actually do them?
Okay. So it works like this. That's a really good question, Amelia, because it's important. So cool down is super important. So at a swim meet, I might swim 7 times, right? So 6 of those 7 times, I've got another race coming up, right? So 6 of those times I have to go to the warm down pool and we have to swim about 16 laps, around about that, to make sure the lactate in my blood basically goes away. So when I get back up to race in the next race, I'm fresh again and I'm not carrying all those byproducts of like lactic acid and those sort of things in my muscles because they'll make me slow down for my next race. So cool downs are super important. But the last race of every meet, I wouldn't do a cool down. I just go, no, I'm done. I'm over it. I'm not doing the cool down because I wasn't going to race again for like weeks. So it didn't matter. You understand? But if you've got several games of soccer on a weekend, you've got to do a cool down between games of soccer, right? Does that make sense? If you're doing intense exercise, like if you're at training and you're doing intense workouts at training, you've got to do a cool down because that'll get you and to improve you and be ready, that make you ready to compete on the weekend in the game. Does that make sense? And after the game, you got to do a cool down. You just got to. You got to do your stretching. You got to do your cool down. You do. You just got to. You can try to get out of Amelia, but you got to do your cool down. I'm telling you.
I always get in when I don't do it.
Yeah, it might not make a lot of sense, and it might be the most boring thing you can ever do this week. But Amelia, it's these small 1% things that are going to turn you into a champion as a soccer player. It's the small things that you hate to do. If you get good at it, will make you a champion. I promise.
Hey, Duncan, just an insight. Amelia is a bit of a champion swimmer, and so is Charlie. So I think they're asking
Good.
swimming questions as much
Very
as
good.
soccer questions. So I'm
That's
sure
good.
yeah.
So you know all about it, Amelia. You're just trying to get me to say you don't have to do swim downs. But I'm sorry to tell you, you do. You do. It's the 1%ers, Amelia, that's going to turn you into a champion.
So last 2 questions left. Does anybody have any questions? So we can wrap up at 7.
You're doing a great job, Ruby. This has been a really good hosting effort.
Thank you.
Ruby, can I ask one?
Yes.
Hey, so Duncan, you had a very famous coach in Laurie, and I know you do some coaching now, even in our work environment. So what's one thing you give us coaches, I guess in this space, in the sports environment, to maybe motivate or encourage players? What did you receive or give?
So for the coaches on the call and the support people on the call, it's all about having fun, and you hear that all the time. But the great thing about being a coach is it allows you to keep on having fun in sport. Okay, so being a coach sometimes is as much fun as playing the game, and you can go back to when you played the game and why you became a coach. Why did you become a coach? Because you love playing the game. Okay. And as a coach, you get to learn from other coaches, and that's the fun part. The fun part is improving yourself as a coach. And if you admire someone in that way they're coaching, well, get over there and ask them really, really good questions, and then try the answers they give you, try it on for size. Because if you're growing and then using what you grow and then put it into the team, you're having fun too. So it's not just all about sort of like getting the kids to improve and getting the team to improve and getting to the next level and getting to the grand final. No. As a coach, you want to be having just as much fun as the kids by learning from other coaches and going forward and trying new techniques and new strategies and new training and new this. If you're in that space and you're being regenerated by being a bit of a fan and seeing admired people and getting on with it, then the kids are going to translate that into their fun too. So if you're having fun, it translates straight into the team. Simple as that.
Thanks, Duncan.
Does Eva have a question?
Actually, no, sorry.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Does anybody else have any? Okay, we are done. So now I'd just like to say thank you to Duncan, and on behalf of Glen Eira FC, it was such a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for sharing your inspirational story with us and making the time.
Well, thank you very much. I had some really, really great questions tonight. Ruby, again, you did a great job with hosting. Thank you for hooking us up, John. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you on a Friday night. I hope when COVID is over, your team goes on to great success, and something you've learnt tonight will help you be a better soccer player and a better person, because I've learned a lot tonight, and I want to say thank you very much for your questions.
Brilliant. Thank you, Duncan.
See you guys.
Cool. Thank you. Bye.
See ya.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Duncan.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.